Deep frying is a dry heat cooking method by submerging the food in a proper amount of fat or oil. This technique is typically performed between 160 degrees Celsius and 200 degrees Celsius. The hot oil cooks the food quickly, creating a crispy exterior while drawing out moisture. The best foods for deep frying are starchy vegetables that are known for being fried and served as a side dish, such as French fries, or vegetables that are dipped in batter such as tempura. Proteins as fish as meat are usually breaded before being deep fried. I think the biggest example is fried chicken. However, creating a crispy texture is not always what we're looking for. Sometimes deep frying is being used to pull out moisture, for example with zucchini or eggplant. Now, I can talk about deep frying for a long time because you have a lot of people that are always saying like deep fry and something will be delicious. I especially love bitterballen. Bitterballen is a Dutch classic. It's a beautiful stew covered with breadcrumbs and it's so good. Whenever you're in the Netherlands, you gotta try it out. But today I just wanted to share a little very cool technique by creating a hollow shaped breadcrumb. Often deep frying is being seen as something very unhealthy and very cheap, but there are great ways to bring deep frying to the next level, which I'm going to show you right now. Now, what I absolutely love about techniques like this is that it's super surprising, because over here I have a really nice mold and I'm going to fill it with some clarified butter, or you could also use coconut oil or olive oil when it's a really good one, but I wouldn't suggest that because it's super expensive and such a waste. So I have some clarified butter and I'm just going to fill the mold. And once I've filled it, we're going to freeze it. And then once it's frozen, we're going to cover it in breadcrumbs. So then we're going to give it a little flour, a little egg wash, and then breadcrumbs or panko, and then deep fry it. And when you actually deep fry it, all the oil or fat will melt and it will run out of the mold and you'll be left with a hollow shape. It can be any shape you like. So as long as the mold is the shape you like, you can make that shape. Later on you can fill it with a cream, a foam, whatever you like, but it creates such a surprising amuse or bite for your guests. So just fill them up with the fat or oil and then freeze them till solid. Now put them in a freezer at around -20 degrees Celsius. Be sure that it's not a weak freezer that's at -12 or 13. It really needs to be at least -20 degrees Celsius. Otherwise it doesn't freeze hard enough for you to cover before it starts to melt. Now the clarified butter has frozen, so we can remove it from the mold. Should be a pretty easy job. Just open up the mold or remove it from the mold depending on the type of mold that you use. And as you can see, it has frozen beautifully. It stayed into a beautiful shape. And let me just grab one. Here you can see it has adjusted really nicely to the mold. So now we can start adding the breadcrumbs. I use panko. It's finely blended. So it's a little bit finer than the panko that you buy in the store, but you can use breadcrumb as well. Now first we're going to add a thin layer of flour. Just put it in, give it a little wiggle, roll it around and make sure that it's just covered in flour and that there are no more lumps attaching to the butter. Then what I like to do is I always like to work with a wet hand and a dry hand. So I add it to the egg wash, give it a little shake, and now what you can do when you do really big batches, I actually love working with a tweezer as well, because then your hands don't get so dirty. Put it in, little shake, and then it's covered with the panko. Now as you can see, it's already covered with the panko and it has a really nice thin layer. I always like to go back. So another egg wash and then another layer of panko, because then it's a bit thicker, it has a bit more texture, and it's also just a bit more safer, because otherwise it might fall apart because it is so thin. So another layer of egg wash. Again, I'm going to use the tweezer, but otherwise just use a wet hand and a dry hand. Otherwise it's going to be a very big mess. And then put it in the panko. Give it a little swirl and then make sure that it is absolutely covered. Now, here it is. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put it back into the freezer for a couple of minutes, so just it can set and then we're going to deep fry it at 180 degrees Celsius. So be sure you have a pot with hot oil ready. So I've placed them in the freezer for a couple of minutes and they have set up nicely, which means I can deep fry them at 180 degrees Celsius for a couple of minutes until they're golden brown. All the oil that has been frozen will melt. It will actually being pushed out of the breadcrumbs or the panko, and then you're left with a beautiful hollow shape. So deep fry them for a couple of minutes. Now, as you can see, the color starts to change into a beautiful golden color, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Just keep it moving for a nice even color, and once it has a beautiful golden color, we can take it out. Let me gently pick one up. As you can see, beautiful golden color. This is when I like to take it out. If you prefer a darker color, so more caramelization, just take it out a bit later on, but for me, this is perfect. Another one, beautiful color. Take it out as well. And then what we'll do is we'll keep these in a dehydrator at around 60 degrees Celsius for an hour, just to really ensure that there is no more moisture. And then you can keep them covered for a couple of days. So it's super easy to prep as well. So I do this at 180 degrees Celsius just so that it sets very fast, the egg wash and the panko. If you do it at a lower temperature, there is a chance that the shape will actually collapse a bit, and this way you have your beautiful shape. But if you're deep frying something else that needs a bit longer for all the moisture to evaporate and then it can color, deep fry at a lower temperature. Now they have crisped up nicely, and as you can see, we're left with that beautiful shape. If you make a little hole at the bottom, you can easily fill it with a foam, a cream, whatever you like. I know that you can also breadcrumb it and then deep fry it, but then the filling is going to be hot. So if you want to surprise your guests with a cold filling, but still a beautiful crispy exterior, then this is definitely the way to do it. Now, I can show you. You see the beautiful hollow interior that's ready to be filled. Really lovely crispy layer, and yeah, I love this. Now, deep frying is definitely a very important technique to master. Just be aware of temperature and time, and once you get the hang of that, it's such a great technique. A little tip, hot oil and water don't really mix. There is a big chance of splattering, of even causing fires, so it is quite dangerous. So if you have something with a high moisture content, be aware of that and don't deep fry too much at a time. You can deep fry some beautiful herbs as well to make them crisp up, but do it at a few quantity at a time, because otherwise it will spatter. You can actually get pretty burned up as well. So like I said, really be aware of that, and then it can be a great addition for your technical skills. Watch the entire series on Gronda and start mastering the fundamentals of cooking. Just click the link in the description.